What up, what up, what up? You know what time it is. It's almost showtime here in a second. Gotta do some other bullshit. You got questions, comments, hot takes? Put them in the chat. Oh, by the way, no Flim today on the show. So that's going to be fantastic for all of us. Especially me. It's going to be fantastic for especially me, guys. And there I go, clearing my throat. But yeah, no, we should be good with the Flim. Man, it was rough. Shout out to anybody who went back and listened and watched all that stuff. Because it seems like we getting somewhat consistent people. Somewhat consistent people. Wow, Betty White is having a birthday party on January 17th when she turns 100. I would love to do that. I mean, obviously the entire world's going to celebrate. Man, y'all weird, bro. Oh, yeah, I should probably put that in, I should probably put that in here somewhere. Actually, that's probably going to be best of the best. No, obscure them so they can't see it. Anyway. Control A, Control B. I feel like everybody saw it. There we go. That's a lot better. Yeah, honestly, this story, if you're looking at it right now, this is easily probably the most insane thing that's happened in one of the most insane weeks in all of sports. Because it definitely has vibes like it definitely sounds like sports is was on the verge of shutting down again, but we all know that nobody's going to allow that to happen. There's too much money on the line, especially this late in the season. Come on, guys. We would never let this money get away from us, you know what I mean? Although it would be sick if they were just yeah, we're going to pause the season for 3 weeks, and then all these injured players were able to come back, especially the ones that are on the verge of I'm going to come back. I'm projected to come back during the playoffs. I'm sure that would be clutch. And then on top of that, it would also... What would it help pausing? Oh, probably reduce the spread of COVID, which, if that was the end goal, would be a thing. Can't confirm that. Whoops. By the way, today's gonna be rough because I didn't buy any. Do I have any mixer? Hold on. Oop. We'll see. I got today's drink is Wild Turkey 151, which, by the way, I'm a big fan. It gets the job done at a very high efficiency rating. Anyway, we are doing hydration breaks, but we're still gonna try and make the show under an hour. Once we get the podcast started, I'm aiming for under an hour. I feel like the NFL show went pretty well when we did under an hour, but you guys know what we're doing right now. It's, of course, waiting for people to hop in. As soon as we get to 500 views, we'll start the show, bro. Remember when people used to do that? They do it now. They do it on Twitter Spaces, but they used to do it on they used to do it on other they used to do it on Twitter. No. Yeah, they used to do it on Periscopes. Or if you were stealing a fight, which there are better ways to steal a fight, but if you were stealing a stream of a fight, that would be hey, I'm not going to show the fight until there's 500 people in the chat, or I'm not going to show the fight until such and such subscribes to this such and such social media channel. It's cool. So just go to crack streams where they show it to you without bogarting it. You know what I mean? They stream it live. It's not that big a deal. Learn how to steal properly, guys. Come on. I don't call it stealing for me personally because your boy be out here. I don't call it stealing for me personally mainly because I be out here paying for cable. So yeah, most of the time, like whenever there's like Cowboys or whenever there's NFL stuff, I don't feel bad about it. Multi-stream, because I have like my TV on or I watch on my online stream, and I'll be like, I don't care, I don't give a fuck. Probably shouldn't say that. Sorry, kids. Don't. I will say I do not care about the quote-unquote sanctity of the NFL streaming rights. So, shout out to the FCC. Hit me up. Maybe one day I'll be a big enough sportscaster where I can tell the story about how I was not cool enough to purchase the NFL Game Pass for $500 for an entire year, or watch Red Zone, because I fervently don't watch Red Zone. I actually don't think you get anything out of it in terms of like enjoying football. Although it does, obviously, I see a lot of really bad things that happen in football all the time, so I find it funny. Man, I should have put that as best of the best too. I'll put it on there. I'm gonna write it underneath there. Yeah, so we're gonna talk about a couple things today. What's going on? There we go. Move some stories around real quick. Sorry about that. I find it disturbing that caught on. Kidding. As a TikTok audio. Let's see. Hunter hydration break. Yeah, we do have the 2 hydration breaks this episode. So if you're unfamiliar with that and if you're showing up for the first time ever, and when I say we, I mean us as a show. We have points in the show because sometimes the things we talk about here get a little bit overwhelming, and also it's the Friday show, so we need to be out here, enjoying ourselves. You never know how many Fridays you got left. You can only hope that you make it to the next one. You can only hope that you get to a point where every day is a Friday, or well, really every day is a Saturday. You know what I mean? Here's hoping. Blue Beetle's getting his own movie, and it's going to be in 2023. Oh, man, I can't wait. I love how all the bandwagon fans have now allowed for the nerds to get the things that they want, so I appreciate that. If you watch Young Justice, hit me up in the chat, or hit me up on social media, because I too watch Young Justice, and I feel like I don't have enough friends to talk about it with, because not everybody's watching it like religiously like I am, because that is one of my favorite shows on the accessible for people to view, because I can't say on TV because it's not on TV anymore. No, Young Justice? No, it was. At one point it was, but now it's somewhere else. It's in the bowels of the internet, and when I say bowels of the internet, I mean HBO Max. Basically the same thing, right? Sorry guys, I'm trying to find some glassware. Actually, I don't have to drink 151 because one of my stocking stuffers was whiskey. Because, see kids, that's why you got to build a strong brand. So for Christmas every year, I get something that's like whiskey or cigar related, and that honestly, I make sure that everybody knows the things that I like sports, whiskey, cigars, and then I keep the weird stuff that I like to myself. But also, the things that I like are very obvious, and they're very good presents for me personally. So I'm a big fan. Raise your hand if you're not done with your Christmas shopping yet. Anyway, Vartek. I don't know what that means. What's up? Am I not being heard? Nope. I just did a sound check there. Shout out to Tabitha, whoever you are, hopping into the chat before we start kicking it off right here. But anyway, Tabitha, make sure you like and subscribe. It's fun saying that. I will say, for as annoying as like and subscribe is, it actually does work, because there's times where I'm watching guys I watch like big time YouTubers, and I watch like major, I watch people who make money off of streaming on YouTube and stuff like that, right? So streaming on YouTube, making videos for YouTube, all that kind of jazz like that. I watch people who make money off of that. And sometimes I forget to like. I really do. Sometimes I forget to like. That's just how it is. Even though I do it all the time. Oh, man. Honestly, guys, I think I'm going to have to leave the screen here for a second because I got to clean out this glass. Unless there's another one around here somewhere. This is called being ill-prepared for your broadcast, kids. Don't do this. If you know you have a podcast and you drink on screen, make sure the glasses nearest the camera are clean. Life tips. Damn, man. I really do gotta, make a dumb decision real quick. Alright, I'll be right back. I will be right back. And when I come back, we're gonna start the show. Yo, yo, yo. We got to work fast here, folks, because the ice is already melting. I don't know who Tabitha Owens is, but shout out to her for hopping in the chat. Even if it was for but a mere minute or second or two. Appreciate that. Fancy ice cube. Both of these things were a Christmas present last year. Yep. I'm living the life. Oh, shit. Almost. All right, let's cook it up. Get the show started here. Go back to the starting screen. Get these tweets out real quick. And we'll get it all. It's on and popping. Really surprised. Actually, not surprised at all by that stat that I saw. I got a long list of. It's basically the amount. It's like the super score of pass protection in the NFL. So it's like, it is basically all of the. It's PFF and ESPN scores. It's PFF and ESPN scores for pass protection for every team in the NFL, and then it's the average of those two scores. So they have that going for them, and it is hilarious how low the Dolphins are because it's a 0. It's a 0 on both. So maybe, just maybe, they'd be better off literally with anybody else out there on the field, but hey, offensive, big people are hard to come by, I guess. They're out here giving O-lineman a bad name, and, you know, I do my part to do that, but that's rough. Let's go. Broke Boy Sports. Episode 171. Oh yeah, back to square one. That's the name of this week's episode. I think it's pretty obvious as to why that is the case if you've been paying attention to any form of sports news, because it's basically a relapse of where we were before, which, you know, super pumped, bro. Super pumped. Listen and watch live. Anyway, did I put something that is not live? That's YouTube and that's Twitch. Yeah, I guess I don't have any room for hashtags the way that I wrote it. Right here. Ooh. Twitch. Wow, I'm really wasting a shit ton of time right now. Gotta close this for a second. Actually, gonna close that completely because I'm not using that. I really want to know, like, what that random. Anyway, podcast, NFL, Twitter. Damn it. Why are there so few? Well, it's because there's so many fucking links on this thing. Wait, there's Twitch on here twice. That's why. It's like all these extra characters that aren't supposed to be there. Can you walk away? You won't hear me say, please, oh baby, oh no. Yeah. There you go, guys. That's your song for today. If you're a Kingdom Hearts kid, that's your song. Oh man. All right, let's get it popping. NFL. What other sport do we talk about? We actually talked about we're going to talk about the NHL today for like 10 seconds. So there's that. I know. You know, stick with the. Don't go chasing waterfalls. Stick to the rivers and lakes that you're used to, Ashton. I know that's what you're saying as you listen to this, but sometimes, how am I supposed to get better at talking shit about hockey if I don't talk shit about hockey? So, listen and watch live. Did I just hear myself for a second? It's weird. I forgot. Let's go. Also, I got a really funny part of the show that's actually super sad. Anyway, all right. Here we go, guys. Our favorite part of starting up the show is, of course, going to the Spreaker app, opening that, and seeing what it shuts down as I try and get my podcast started immediately. We are good so far. Well, we're not good right there, because we should be pumping audio into my headphones. And there we go. Yep, redirected. All right, cool. Got sound check maxed out. All right. Unsolicited slide out menus. Love it. All right. Broke Boys. Oh, shit. Broke Boy Sports Podcast. Damn, man. Podcast episode 171. What is up with my shift today? Is it not registered? Episode 171. Back to square one. Oh, shit. NBA news, college football. Oop, we do not talk about college football. NHL teams. What else do we talk about? Come on, guys. Oh, yeah. 15 picks and more. NFL, NBA, Twitter, Twitch, podcast. Let's go. Oh, man. Yep, we tweeted it out and put it everywhere. We're going live in 3, 2. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody else in between, my name is Ashton Gene Lewis. This is the Broke Boy Sports Podcast, episode 171 to be exact. I feel aptly named Back to Square One, because that's what it really feels like we're at right now in terms of the presence of Omicron, the Omicron variant of COVID-19. Tons of fun. I know at least 7 people with Omicron right now, so it's fun. Or with just COVID in general, but it definitely comes off like it's Omicron because all these cases hitting at one time, especially for people, we have to entertain the dark reality that the vaccines that we spent a year and a half waiting on, or like really long period of time waiting on, are actually ineffective versus Omicron, and they are doing their job in terms of after you get infected with COVID-19, the Omicron variant, and they are preventing you from ending up dead. So there's that. Anyway, we are live here from Parts Unknown, aka Houston, Texas, and we got a lot of sports to talk about. As you know, I like to build this show as the best and the worst that sports has to offer every single week, not just one week at a time. We're back on our regularly scheduled program. I know Christmas is next week, and it is Christmas lands on Friday? Yeah. No, Saturday. Right, because I'm going to brunch the day after Christmas on the 26th. Anyway, we're going to do the show. I will probably, you know what? I might do a Christmas Eve show or might do it on Thursday. I'm not going to sit here and promise and say stuff and all that kind of jazz like that because you know how it goes. You never know what's going to pop up for me. And I try and make this podcast a priority. I feel like a lot of people recognize that I make this show a priority as much as I possibly can as a human being. But life also pops up and this is not my full-time job. Anyway, we got a lot of stuff to talk about, so we're going to power through this real quick. We're going to hop right into the only non-sports segment of this entire show because I feel like I'm a well-rounded individual, although I will say some people definitely talk to me like I'm only a sports person and I'm only a sports guy. But if you know me as a human being, you know I have interest in a lot of other things that I wouldn't say surprise people, but well, if you listen to this show on a regular basis, you've heard me sing songs from musicals because I love me a good musical. I really do. Can't wait for West Side Story to drop. My girlfriend sent me the trailer, the new trailer that they released, and a lot of nostalgia because West Side Story was like one of the first musicals I really, really was into when I got to like middle school, and it was a huge part of my development and helped me understand like how Broadway, for as open and progressive as the method of acting in theater was still super racist, because I had a teacher, luckily a white guy, who was very open about the fact that the original casting of West Side Story was extremely racist, to the point where they basically had white actors in borderline blackface, because they had them in brownface, which is like just as bad, right? Except they didn't have them like tar black or anything like that, you know. That's it. That's pretty much it. Anyway, other stuff going on in sports. Well, this is, like I said, this is our only non-sports segment, so I guess we'll just dive right into it. Nerd news, ladies and gentlemen, for this week is don't be that person. Actually, there's not like actual news that I could give you a nerddom. I just want to take a couple of seconds and tell you, the human being watching this right now, you have a chance to do the right thing and you have a chance to do the wrong thing. You make that choice every single day that you wake up. I'm going to tell you this right now. Choose to do the right thing in this sense. If you've seen Spider-Man No Way Home, that's fantastic. Some people can't go see it the day that it comes out, or the weekend that it comes out, or the week after that it comes out, or 2 weeks after that. I understand that there are certain media outlets in terms of like podcasts and articles and stuff like that people are responsible for not going to, especially in the stance of in this time period right now, because you're in spoiler territory, right? I don't have like a hard and fast rule or whatever, but when it comes to like Marvel movies and you know it's going to be a big one, I give you 2 weeks, and then everything you find out about the movie after that is on you, right? That being said, like tweeting about things that actually happen in the movie, like people tweeting their genuine reaction, their happiness about the film, and how they feel like Spider-Man was done so well, because a lot of people for some reason have like this really deep connection to Spider-Man out of all the heroes, because once again, he is your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, so he is supposed to be the most relatable of all the heroes when it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But nonetheless, I point out and I implore you, don't be that person. Don't be the person who doesn't give a shit about somebody else's feelings or somebody else's situation. Even when you're out in public, like, be careful about what you're saying. There's so many people that you talk about. The most famous incident being, of course, when Star Wars originally came out, and spoiler alert for a movie that's like over 30 years old at this point, a lot of people found out that Darth Vader is actually the father of Luke Skywalker, because they heard people leaving the theater talking about it. So don't be that person. Don't be that person in life. Don't be that person in your friend group. Don't be that person in your family. Don't be that person online, most importantly, I would say. But yeah, the joy that you had watching it, or the hatred that you had watching it, let somebody else be able to go in there and have the same reaction, or the same ability to have that genuine reaction, because if you take that away from someone, they can never get it back, right? So don't do that. Don't be that person. That's all I got for nerd news. Moving on. We got best of the best, ladies and gentlemen. If you didn't hear about this, it's actually one of the wildest things that happened. National Signing Day. If you guys know my previous gig, I was a high school sports reporter, and I think I mentioned that about 50 billion times a show, right? But I was a high school sports reporter, and I used to cover Fort Bend ISD, so I had the opportunity to actually cover like some pretty major guys that are doing, like Rashawn Slater. I covered Rashawn Slater when he was in high school, the left tackle. The left tackle for the LA Chargers right now, and a couple of other guys as well. Kenneth Murray, his high school, his NFL teammate. I covered both of them when they were in high school. Ross Blacklock, if you're a Houston Texans fan. Anyway, National Signing Day is a major day for a lot of players in general. Even if you're like not number one in the country, like even if you're now on ESPN, people waiting with bated breath to see what hat you pick up and put on your head, right? This is a moment that is the culmination of a lot of people's hard work and a lot of parents' hard work to get you to and from practice and help you and guide you on this path to making a decision that is going to be a part of your life. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's going to define your life or anything like that, because that's just not true. You get to decide what things define you as a human being. Things happen to you all the time. Do certain things define you that are beyond your control? Yes. But things like selecting a college and it being the right or the wrong decision, that you can choose to let that define you, right? It is a part of your story. It's a part of your path, but it does not control and influence who you are as a human being. But nonetheless, this is a story about a National Signing Day situation that actually... I quote tweeted the news from Bruce Feldman, and I was just like, the world will never be the same, because the number one recruit in the number one recruit for this current recruiting cycle on National Signing Day, after being committed to Florida State for a long period of time, decided he was going to flip his commitment to Jackson State University. Some of you don't know where Jackson State University is. It's in Jackson, Mississippi, which is the largest city in Mississippi, which doesn't mean too much. I have actually my cousin actually went to Jackson State, played football there, and he tells me about how small Jackson is as a city. Nonetheless, Deion Sanders has chosen that to be his whole goal, and he's made it very clear that he wants to not only put HBCUs on, or just not only put Jackson State on the map, but all HBCUs when it's all said and done. Jackson State is going to be playing in a pretty major bowl game this upcoming bowl season, and a lot of people are probably going to be in attendance that have never been to a college football game. They just want an opportunity to go out there and vibe and really be a part of something that feels like it is special. I will say this is a major situation. Travis Hunter, who is the number one college football recruit in the country, flipped his commitment to Jackson State. If you did not see that on National Signing Day, there's a video out there where he does the whole I'm gonna put the hat on, throw it away, put the hat on, throw it away, put the hat on, throw it away, and then he picks up Jackson State and he unveils that he has the Believe shirt underneath it. That level of recruitment, that kind of pickup in terms of like a football player, is going to change the direction of recruitment and the expectation for recruitment at Jackson State probably for the next 10 years, as long as Deion Sanders is there, right? Other stuff to go along with that, that is like the universal shot being fired into the dark, right? That them picking up the number one corner and number one recruit in the country is ridiculous. It is absolutely absurd. I would also point out there's a very strange connection that I had with this kid, and I did because I've never seen. So this is weird. I watched Destroying on YouTube, right? Destroying is the number one football YouTuber. He does he does one-on-ones, wide receiver DBs. If you don't know who Destroying is, he's a former University of Central Florida night punter. When they found out that he was making so much money they found out that he was making money off of his YouTube channel. They called him in and they told him it was a violation of the NCAA rules. He has two options. It's to return all of the money that he made from YouTube, or donated to charity or whatever. Deactivate his YouTube account because he was basically because the NCAA owned his image and likeness. His athletic ability technically belonged to the NCAA, right? So he was using something the NCAA controlled to make money for himself, right? And the thing that he was using to control it was his literal body and his skill and his ability and stuff like that. So he couldn't do workout stuff because technically that could be deemed something that the NCAA owns when it's all said and done. He decides, I'm just going to become a full-time YouTuber, and a couple million subscribers later, he's kind of blown up and doing his own thing. He's got his own clothing line, which, not as difficult as it used to be back in the, back in the day to be able to obtain, but a lot of people are big fans of his. He does one-on-ones. He hangs out with NFL football players on a regular basis. He works out. He trains. He's a part owner of football. He's a part owner of a football team in a smaller minor league football team or whatever, or a lower level football team. And he's done a lot of exceptional things for a guy who, quite frankly, he's got a charismatic attitude. He's pretty funny, but he's not he doesn't come he's not a genius, right? He's not out here really changing the game. He is giving people what they want. He's a competitor. He's a guy who works out. He's dedicated to the game, dedicated to the craft. Anyway, I tell you that long story because he hangs out with this one high school kid all the time. Because he lives in Florida, Destroying lives in Florida, and he hangs out with this one high school kid all the time, pops up in his videos and does funny stuff all the time, and that kid is Travis Hunter. So I did not realize, I've seen it in the description a couple of times before, but it is Travis Hunter, who I thought he was just a guy who had graduated from high school, was a really good a really good college recruit, and just kind of was chilling out or whatever, and didn't really continue the whole college football thing. Did not know he was the number one high school football recruit in the country. And so Travis Hunter commits to Jackson State, changes the game forever. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, one thing, I'll put it out there because I know a lot of people don't want to take something like this moment and talk about it, but I would also like to continue to point out that Deion Sanders gets paid money to be a member of Barstool Sports. So if that's some people who listen to this show, that's not a problem for them. For me, it personally is, because they're, they got a president. What is Portnoy's job? They got a president of their company who's been who's been on film and said nigga multiple times, and then when people told him he needed to apologize, he refused to do it. because he felt like he was surrendering to the mob of people who feel like nigga is a racial slur, which it is. So, interesting. And on that note, like I mentioned before, we have hydration breaks throughout the course of this show. If you caught the stream before it started, by the way, that's the real fun part of the show. The stream before we get this whole thing started. If you hop in the comment section, you can say whatever you want, do all that kind of jazz like that, and I will respond. And we can give some perspective on everything that's going on. We can talk about literally anything before the show starts, as I try and get my social media stuff together here about posting so that people hop into the chat. Other stuff going on. We do have a hydration break coming up. After that, we got Worst of the Worst. We do have about a week ago. And I think this week is, hold on. Trying to check the sheet here. Yeah, we do have about a week ago. So it's going to be dope. We're going to come back. We'll take a little hydration break. It's going to be the length of one of Christina Gukis' songs that she is so kind to let us use on every single one of our shows and makes this happen. So, New Beginnings is the show that the song that we're going to play. It looks like we'll be back in 2 minutes and 40 seconds. This double whiskey Coke right here, maybe halfway gone. We'll see. This is actually like Wild Turkey 151 in here, so it's going to hurt. But it'll hurt so good. Be right back right here on the Broke Boy Sports Podcast. And we're back here live on the Broke Boy Sports Podcast. I'm Ashton Gene Lewis. Just out here living the dream, man. Talking about sports into a microphone. We did finish before we went to our first hydration break. Remember, we do have a second one coming up, and that's right before. What time is the second hydration break? Right, it's right before we do like the whole big spiel about what's going on in sports, where we just talk about general sports topics. If you did hop into the chat in the course of the hydration break, I'm sorry, you're just gonna have to wait around, or you can just drink at your own pace. You don't have to talk into the microphone. That's my job. Other stuff we got going on. Don't forget, like and subscribe. We are simulcasting on Twitch and YouTube. We are also after the show is over, you can listen to us and check out the show on what can you check out? Oh, right. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Deezer, Podchaser, Google Podcasts. Pretty much anything that allows you to listen to audio is where we're going to be found, or where the show's going to be found at. With that note, we're moving on to worst of the worst. Did I set up worst of the worst? Yes, I did, ladies and gentlemen. So we got one of... I know this is a little foreign concept to a lot of people who are not black, but I'm going to try and explain this the best that I possibly can. W-Slam, which is Slam Magazine's women's division. They have an entire Twitter account, Instagram account. Actually, I think it's like a whole section of the website dedicated to stories that are just about women's basketball. But this one in particular addresses a situation that Tiffany Mitchell, who is a part of the Opals, if you're not familiar with that term, it is the term used to refer to Basketball Australia's women's basketball team. She was told by the organization that she had to play with her braids up in a bun. Tiffany Mitchell and her teammates talked about it, and they thought about it over. And if you don't know, there's a lot of black ladies, a lot of black women in general, who play for the Opals. Some of you may know Liz Cambage. She is Australian and plays for them as well. There's a situation that happened with her earlier in the Olympics. We've talked about it multiple times on this show, but nonetheless, just to give you a reference point about somebody who you probably know that plays for the Opals. But Tiffany Mitchell, also been in the league for a long time, 5-year WNBA vet. She was actually one of the first genesis of the rise of South Carolina as a powerhouse within the realm of women's basketball. She's actually 2-time College Player of the Year. So along with the legacy that Asia Wilson left behind, she was one of the most dominant players in women's college basketball history. Tiffany Mitchell went on to become the 9th overall pick in the WNBA draft. She plays for the Indiana Fever, and she was told that, like I said before, she rocks braids, and she was told that she had to play with it up in a bun, and she felt like it was a rule that specifically targeted a certain group of people, which it does, because it always does, right? Whatever. This is a very niche form of discrimination called, as you guessed it, hair discrimination. It is rules that are set in place to control the way that black people typically present their hair, because out of all the groups of people on the face of the planet, black people have a pretty distinct type of hair, pretty distinct hair type that many consider to, if you're a person that's grown up amongst white people, you're not used to people who have coarse hair, as a lot of people, or hair type 5, as they are classified and categorized and everything like that. So you have a situation where a lot of people feel like that is the symbol, or like that's the representation of, just like a lot of things in media where you talk about the good guy wears the white hat, the bad guy wears the black hat type stuff, right? So the type of hair, you think about, if you're a person who's lived in a mostly white neighborhood or mostly white community, or has consumed a shit ton of white media throughout the course of your life, there's a certain perception of what hair is supposed to look like, in your opinion. Whether that be right or wrong is not for me to determine, but the fact of the matter is that is a legitimate thing that mostly it's black women that get affected by, but black men, you hear stories about, we remember that story a couple years ago where the wrestler who was in the course of winning a state title had to cut his dreads out, and his white coaches came over and took athletic scissors and cut his dreads that he'd been growing for 5 years or whatever it was. Ridiculous amount of time, because most of the time when it comes to growing dreads, it is a long process, and it is a part of your growth as a person, as an individual, right? Because it's about the struggle of it's not going to look good at first, but eventually it will pay off in the long run. It is about dedication and commitment to a lot of people, and it has a spiritual connection to to a certain group of people that grow dreads on a regular basis, that come from that kind of community, that come from that kind of environment. Their dreads are a spiritual connection to who they are as a person. It doesn't define them, but is a part of their journey as a human being, growing and changing as time goes on. But then you see somebody go and take athletic scissors used to cut tape and get rid of that in an instant for the sake of a win in a wrestling match. And that official has a long history. That official turned out he had a long history of doing things that were deemed sketchy in terms of the era of racism. But nonetheless, this is an example of hair discrimination that actually there have been laws in America made against this type of stuff, because it is so common that they make these rules and it just so happens to only affect one group of people, right? But yeah, nonetheless, she took a knee during a match, and along with the rest of her teammates, it turns out Basketball Australia had a conversation about it, and they apparently reviewed the rule, and they have since removed it. So, proof that protest does work. And then on top of that, combined with the fact that, oppression comes in a lot of different shapes and sizes, because there are so many people that after the year we just came off in 2020 and 2021, the number of people who are out here talking about their freedom and their oppression and stuff like that, and then don't stand, and then are the same group of people that want to enforce rules like this when it comes to braids that are typically worn by black women, right? Like the type of braids that are typically worn by black women, and saying that they have to be up in a bun. They control it. They want to put it, they want to make it look neat and organized, right? Like that's the whole point of this whole situation. And, 0% surprised, but anyway, that's worst of the worst. Hair oppression sucks, and it's been a huge part of sports for a very long period of time. You talk about with the New York Yankees and how people, for some reason give them kudos and give them points for that whole situation where they're like, you can't have facial hair if you play for the New York Yankees. It's like, you can't be like an adult, So the whole concept of like clean shaven and good looking and all that kind of jazz like that, which is all relative, and on top of that does not affect your ability to perform in any way, shape, or form last time I checked. Unless like your hair is covering your eyes and you're an athlete and you need to use your eyes to be able to make a play. The concept of clean shaven is literally just for the sake of people who are obsessed with order and organizing certain things, which if you know anything about sports, a ton of people out there like that. We move on, ladies and gentlemen. We got a couple of other topics to get to before we get to what's popping or what's going on in the realm of sports. But that was worst of the worst. A little bit of hair oppression for you. A little bit of niche oppression, as people would say. We do not have in about a week ago this week, but we do. Actually, we do. My bad. It's off the top of my head here. It's not off the top of my head. I just didn't write it into the doc. It is shout out to J.R. Smith, baby. About a week ago, we were not thinking about J.R. Smith whatsoever, but it turns out, just like we talked about, I think I mentioned this is like one of my like best of the best situations where I was like, yo, I never thought I would find myself rooting for J.R. Smith to do well in his chemistry class, but here we are. J.R. Smith apparently has got himself and earned himself a 4.0 for his first semester in college, and also wants a Jumpman sponsorship for his college golf career. So shout out to J.R. Smith for not only putting the due diligence and the hard work, even if he had to get a little help from here and there, working hard to go out there and get them grades, baby, regardless of what people say. So shout out to him for making it happen and continuing on the grind, because school is hard. I think everybody under the sun, even the people who have like 4 or 5 degrees in this world, can tell you that school is hard regardless of what level that it's at. But nonetheless, shout out to J.R. Smith, because about a week ago, I completely forgot that J.R. Smith was in college. And this week, I remember just how much that is a story that I'm constantly rooting for, especially considering earlier this week, we saw Megan Thee Stallion graduated from the Texas Southern University. So great inspiration as a black guy to see famous black people putting their struggles in college on Front Street, because Megan Thee Stallion has made it very clear her Texas Southern classes have been very tough on her in the course of her very successful music career, when she could very easily be focusing on that. She's out there hitting them books, baby, and making it happen. Shout out to her. And then, of course, one thing I really, really loved about it is the amount of celebration that she got from like her fans, of course, because there was a lot of people who were just really proud of her because they know how hard college is to achieve. And then on top of that, there's a lot of women who look up to Megan Thee Stallion as an artist or love her music as an artist, that know the struggle. A lot of black women who were strong, educated black women, and a lot of brown women, women who are not white, and even white women who know what the struggle is like to be in college and know how tough it is out there in the world as well. We saw people celebrate by giving her own Texas Southern University varsity jacket. I love that. And then it's, of course, a great example to set for younger kids. Like I said before, as a guy who is a college dropout, I think everybody should at least try to get through college, because there's so many people who determine that college is not for them without ever setting foot in a single college classroom or going on campus not a single day kind of deal, and they just automatically tell themselves that it's not for them because the people around them have told them that it wasn't for them, right? I think everybody should at least try. Megan Thee Stallion has powered through, because this shit is difficult. As a guy who is not good enough to be able to graduate from college as of yet. So we'll see how that goes later on in my life. But nonetheless, shout out to J.R. Smith. 4.0, baby. Keep it up. Keep that hard work going. We Talking Money, or We Talking Money is a segment that we spend on this show discussing, you guessed it, money. The NHL is going to be out of it here, out of a good chunk of money here, because they've had to shut down not only the training facilities, but the play of 3 NHL teams this week. The Calgary Flames, the Colorado Avalanche, and the Florida Panthers will not be playing until at least after after the holiday break because of the massive amount of COVID outbreak that has been going on with not only within the organization but the environment around each one of those teams. Canada's been really serious about the outbreak of COVID-19, which to their credit has probably paid off in spades when it comes to getting the right mindset from their citizens in terms of we're in this together and we're trying to combat this together as opposed to what we've seen here in America. So nonetheless, the NHL is going to be out of quite a bit of money when they have three teams who are not going to be playing. I've seen the NBA also had to reschedule games. We're not going to go through and talk about each game that's had to be canceled, rescheduled, or moved around because of the number of people on each roster that have contracted COVID in the span of that. I saw the story about Joel Embiid. He got COVID recently, which I think is like the second time that he's had it. But he got COVID recently, and he talked about how it really affected his cardio and his conditioning, which is understandable, even if it's just for the simple fact that he had to stay inside of a room and do nothing except like eat and like watch TV and all that kind of jazz like that. Even on just the simple fact of doing that, going from doing that to playing in an NBA basketball game is asking a lot of a regular human being or an exceptional human being like Joel Embiid. Take a little sip here. We do not have any phlegmy coughs this week or this episode. Shout out to everybody who watched the last episode because it was tough for me. Every time I coughed into the microphone, I apologize. It was killing my soul, but the show must go on to a certain degree, right? Anyway, also I do my show by myself, so I wasn't getting anybody sick if I had bronchitis, which is difficult to be like, I'm going to give you bronchitis, you know what I mean? But I do the show by myself. Other stuff going on, well, you just have to wait until after our second hydration break. It is that time, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take another hydration break. When we come back, we will do the final segment of the show, What's Going On in Sports, where we just talk about what's going on in sports. We got NBA games to talk about. We have NBA games to talk about. We're going to do picks for all the NFL games. We got a couple of other random stories that got mixed in there a little bit. We'll see how you guys react to it. Anyway, we'll be right back right here on the Broke Boy Sports Podcast in 3 minutes and 23 seconds. And we're back here live on the Broke Boys Sports Podcast. I'm Ashton Gene Lewis. Make sure you check out the show on YouTube, on Twitch when we're simulcasting. You can actually go back and watch all of the previous broadcasts on those places as well. You can also check out the show afterwards, audio-wise, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podchaser, Deezer, and then that one very, very specific podcast platform that goes only out to India, which apparently people pop in and out of the podcast on there. I did not know that. Shout out to everybody who's watching the show live. Hit me up in the chat with questions if you have any, or just random comments. Really, just say anything that you want to. I respect it. That's how the game be, baby. I understand that. Anyway, hopefully we're having a good time here, and we're going to power through here and talk about, let's see. What else we got? All right, we're doing what's going on. Did not have a media suggestion for this week because honestly, I've been watching a lot of nerd shit lately. Swagger, that show that I mentioned before, I mentioned like 3 times on the show before that you should watch. Swagger has had its season finale come out. I've been watching the Sex Lives of College Girls. I would heavily suggest watching that. Great perspective, especially since it comes from a female comedian, and it is about women in college, even at a small college, but the struggles are for real because every single one of those stories that they told in that show, I have seen. Actually, pretty much every story that has happened in that show, I have witnessed with my own 2 eyes in college. So, and that's from a guy perspective. I can't imagine what it's like from the girl perspective. But yeah, check that show out. I've been watching The Wheel of Time the last 2 days, and it looks like that show is very near its season 1 finale, and I cannot wait. I know some people have read the book. I have not been one of those people. I'm not a smarty pants like you guys. I don't read. I do read. You guys know that I read because I talk about sports on the show, and I read articles to be able to talk about sports on this show. Anyway, moving on. Well, that was me on media suggestions. Just didn't have a graphic or anything like that. But nonetheless, let's see. What do we got here? Let's talk about the NBA. The NBA this week. So a week has passed, naturally, from the last show that we did. That was just a regular variety show. But I'd like to talk about some things that happened in the space of that week for the NBA, because as you know, 7 days is a long time in the league. Not only has COVID shown up and basically forced itself onto every single NBA roster, but nonetheless, a couple of teams have been on the ups and a lot of downs, let's be for real. But we talk about this. The Rockets are they started the season 1-16. As a Houston guy, I pay attention to this kind of stuff, and it hurts me every single second of every single day. But the Rockets started the season 1-16, and then they went on a 7-game winning streak, where in the span of that, they beat the Brooklyn Nets. And then the next game that they lost, I will say it also coincided with the Jalen Green getting hurt at the same time, which of course probably I talked to somebody who's, I talked to a guy who watches the NBA on a regular basis, and we both agree that to a certain degree that's got to hurt your mental psyche a little bit. Like your team goes on a 7-game win streak right when you get hurt. Seems oddly suspicious, even though you could definitely make the argument that there is no correlation or connection or anything like that. Also, it should not be something that hinders you from trying to develop into an NBA basketball player. Just facts. The whole John Wall saga has been happening. If you haven't been paying attention, John Wall, who has been away from the team, very similar to what happened to Carmelo Anthony a couple years ago when he joined up with the Rockets, where he refused to, he wasn't shooting enough threes, basically. And then the Rockets were like, well, cool, you don't want to play to our play style, so you're gonna disappear for a little while. Legitimately, you could check out Carmelo Anthony minutes before tip-off for the Houston Rockets at LA Fitness in New York. So yeah, that being said, Rockets obviously having a terrible season. I think they've got 9 wins. They're 9-21 on the season, or 9-20 on the season. They have They had one of the longest losing streaks in the league at the time, and they had that little bit of glimmer of hope that I have a strange feeling is not going to come around back anytime soon. Anyway, we talk about streaks. Let's talk about some of the longest streaks in the league right now. The Utah Jazz and the Cleveland Cavaliers have the 2 longest winning streaks in the league. By the way, the Cleveland Cavaliers are 4th in the East. That earlier this week they were 2nd. They were as high as 2nd in the East, behind the Brooklyn Nets. But they're doing the thing. Evan Mobley's been hurt because of an elbow thing that happened like a couple of weeks ago. But for the most part, they've been hit by COVID, and that's been hindering their success. But like I said, they are on a 5-game winning streak right now. But yeah. I looked at a 538 article where they talked about Raptor, which is like a wins over replacement other stat. Basically, it's a way to determine the success or the accuracy or the effectiveness of a player on offense and on defense. And guess what? The Cleveland Cavaliers just so happen to have Jared Allen on their team. If you don't remember, he's the one he got the raw end of the deal when the 3-team trade happened to get Kyrie onto the Brooklyn Nets. He got sent to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and now he's become one of the best defensive players in the NBA, along with Rudy Gobert and Nikola Jokic. It's insane. He's also been picking it up on offense as well, which is crazy to think about. Not surprised. Jared Allen was a really good basketball player when he was with the Brooklyn Nets. Did not think he would be like, I'm going to carry the squad type basketball player, which he's kind of doing with the Cleveland Cavaliers right now, along with Evan Mobley, who was panning out and looking very, very good. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. I just spent the last 4 minutes talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers in a positive light, and it's legitimately positive. It's not me making stuff up. They are playing very, very well, and that's without Colin Sexton at the point guard position. Colin's got the knee injury going on or whatever, but Sexland shall return. Sexland will return. If you know what Sexland is, you know what I mean. I'm not going to explain the inside jokes. And when I say inside jokes, things you can easily look up on Google. Utah Jazz, what do you know? The Utah Jazz are very good at basketball, like they've been the last 4 or 5 years. They're on an 8-game win streak right now, and I think they're third in the West off the top of my head. Third or second in the West off the top of my head. Speaking of streaks, let's talk about the sad ones, the sad losing streaks. So the Trailblazers are on a 7-game losing streak, and they're currently outside the playoff picture. I will also point out it is that time of the year where CJ McCollum has an injury that holds him out for months at a time and prevents the Trailblazers from getting into the top 5 of the NBA. Don't worry, he'll be back like they have been for the past 4 years, where he does that thing where he comes back and all of a sudden they're one of the best teams in the NBA and they fight their way back into the top 4 and they end up getting home court advantage throughout the playoffs. Anyway, the Pistons, super sad, 13-game losing streak with no hope in sight. So other news in the NBA, after the potential rumored return date of Klay Thompson on Christmas Day, he is not going to be playing until at least January. So there's he's not going to play until next year, which is a week away. Other stuff, if you guys didn't hear, Steph Curry is the greatest three-point shooter of all time, and now he has the one thing that proves that, even though we all knew that to begin with. Shout out to Steph Curry, real legend of the game, legitimately legend of the game. He has still got plenty of time and plenty of years left in his career, and he is about to push that three-pointers made record to a limit that might be untouchable. Because if you think about the greatness level of Steph Curry throughout the course of his entire NBA career, the fact that he really has never had a really, really hindering injury, other than that one time he broke his pinky finger. He's not had an injury that's completely derailed his career, very similar to what we're seeing with Zion Williamson, who we're going to talk about in a second here. But nonetheless, that record is about to get put into not even the stratosphere. It's about to get put into another universe. It's about to be an alternate universe that is unattainable unless you can somehow access antimatter, that kind of level type stuff. Other than that, Klay Thompson's not going to be back until January. The Warriors are going to be fine. They're still kicking everybody's ass. Zion, speaking of the Pelicans, speaking of sad things, the Pelicans have 9 wins on the season so far. They are with the Rockets at the bottom of the bracket, at the bottom of the tournament. Well, not even at the bottom of the tournament. That would imply that you are even competing for a playoff spot, which they are not. But yeah, so the Pelicans currently 9 wins on the season. Zion's foot still hurts. They tried to test it, and I think this is a practice scenario, not in a Pelicans practice, but they tested his foot. It was sore, and then we didn't hear anything about it. And 3 days later, they were like, well, he's had another setback, and he won't be back for another 4 to 6 weeks. Apparently, he tested his foot, like I said before, and it did not do well. So the Pelicans are 9-20 on the season. Don't worry, Pelicans fans. The lottery will be here before you know it. Don't worry. Other than that, weird things happening. Kyrie Irving's back. Yep, that Kyrie Irving. The Nets are number 1 currently in the East, but due to literally massive COVID hits, I think they had 10 players in a game that they played 2 days ago. They literally lost 5 people to the COVID-19 reserve list or whatever, to protocols. They lost 5 players, so they were down to 10. On the bench and the roster, I will point this out. A lot of teams, when they get hit with COVID stuff, they're calling up G League players, which, I love to see. I love to see guys get opportunities to play in the league and all that kind of stuff like that. Just wish it wasn't under these type of circumstances. And hopefully, all the people who we are seeing get listed testing positive for COVID are going to be all right, because it's still a legitimate disease, and we're hearing that Omicron is a milder version of COVID-19, which kind of is indicative of minor success versus COVID as a disease. But the fact that literally I know 7 people who have Omicron right now, and if it wasn't for a positive test telling me that I did not have Omicron last week, I could have sworn that I had it, but I had bronchitis. Anyway, the Nets are number 1 in the East due to massive COVID hits. They are imploring the part-time services of Kyrie Irving. I mean, legitimately, he's going to be a part-time player. He can't play in games that are at home, that are going to be in New York or in Canada. So he won't be able to play home games. He will not be able to play against the Raptors in Toronto. If you recall, last year the Raptors couldn't even play in Toronto. They had to play in Orlando and Florida, and it kind of derailed their entire season because they were so far away from their families. It was like they were on the road for the entire year. But nonetheless, it's getting weird. It's getting weird. And honestly, this is even the weirdest thing that happened this week. So Kyrie Irving is going to be back. He's currently getting tested on a regular basis to make sure that he currently doesn't have COVID because he is unvaccinated. So he is a massive threat to creating an outbreak within a team that already has lost multiple players to COVID-19 in terms of either positive test or in a contact tracing or whatever it may be. But expect those the league rules to get turned up a little bit, which by the way they already have. Now they're instituting game day testing. So on the day of games, people are going to have to get tested, and unless you've had a booster or you recently had the virus, you're going to have to test every single day before games. So it's going to not be fun for even the people who are vaccinated, because the unvaccinated. Congratulations. Other stuff going on. By the way, that's the same rule that's being instituted for the NFL. They're instituting more testing to get more accurate results in terms of preventing COVID-19 outbreaks, which it's going to be real important here in a second because we're about to really do something that's kind of stupid. But like I said before, I had something that's semi-funny. So for however long it takes, I'm going to show you every single player. If you're watching on the stream on YouTube or Twitch, this is going to really benefit you a ton. I'm not going to be reading off all the names because then I will be dead. With the amount of wind that it would take to read that off. Anyway, I got a list of all the players that are currently either have tested positive for COVID or in the COVID-19 protocols for the NFL. And on this next section of the show, I'm just going to let it scroll. I'll talk again when the scrolling is done. Even got just some music there. It's going to take a while, guys. We're at the Dallas Cowboys right now, by the way. We just got to the D's. We're at the Kansas City Chiefs, guys. LA Chargers. We're at the M's. We're almost there. Powering through. And if you're watching on Twitch or on YouTube, you can confirm that we're scrolling through pretty fast. We're scrolling by pretty fast. I'm not even lying. New England Patriots. We're there. We're at the N's. We're at the Giants. Philadelphia Eagles. Here we go. This is the last team on the list. Washington football team. Almost there. Almost there for Washington. Yeah, it's taking a while, huh? There we go. We finished it, guys. We finished the list of every single player currently either with COVID or in the COVID-19 protocols for the NFL, and it took like 2 minutes to scroll through it. And if you are watching on Twitch or on YouTube, I feel like we scrolled through pretty quick. I may be wrong, but I feel like we had the scrolling going pretty quick there. I tried to make it reasonable. But yeah, that's where we're at right now, ladies and gents. And so let that be a guiding light for you as we break down every game for week 14 of the NFL season. So we've already had 3 games rescheduled, in case you did not know. But I also have a note to myself that I put in here beforehand because there's clearly a shit ton of confusion as to why these things are being rescheduled the way they're being rescheduled. So I would also like to point out Thursday Night Football was lit. If you did not see it, you should definitely go watch a replay of it. Chiefs 34, Chargers 28. Read this before discussing football. I put this in here for myself, I think, Tuesday. NFL policy agreed to in July states a forfeiture would only happen if all the following instances occurred. All these things have to happen for a team to forfeit a game. So, and there's a lot of players in the NFL who clearly didn't read this part because they're blaming the union, and we'll talk about that in a second. 1, a game is postponed by requirement of government authorities or at the discretion of the commissioner. The commissioner, of course, obviously not going to postpone a game unless something absolutely absurd happens, and then also these other 2 contingencies happen. The league can't find a suitable makeup date within the framework of the season, and so that's just not going to be the case. They're literally just going to be like whatever day next week, we're going to just make you guys play, right? Unless this was week 18, perhaps, then it would be the week before the playoffs, and it would be a problem being like, hey, we're still going to make this team that has the potential to make the playoffs play 4 or 5 or 3 days before because we needed to pause their game so they can get enough people who are healthy or who can test negative consecutively and play an NFL game. The original postponement caused an outbreak among unvaccinated players of one team. So this is the rule that everybody was worried about with Cole Beasley, where they were like unvaccinated players caused the outbreak among the team, and then everybody has to forfeit their money. It seems that multiple teams would rather play without half their roster in some cases. We'll talk about the number. We'll talk about the numbers of players who tested positive in a second, because when we get to each breakdown, I actually have information on number of players who tested positive. But there was like multiple teams, the Raiders and the Seahawks, either through sources, they released that they would actually rather just play the game, because if you use like a little bit of logic here, would you rather go and get smoked on Sunday because you don't have enough depth, right? And that's not even a guarantee, right? It's an NFL game. Your starters go out there and play most of your minutes anyway. Your starters go out there and play a ton of their minutes in each individual position. There are certain teams like the Cleveland Browns who lost 12 starters. Their backups will be going in there. They lost 12 starters plus like a bunch of backups to go along with it as well, right? There's plenty of people. Well, there's not people they can sign off the street or anything like that. By the way, if you're one of those unvaccinated players who's like a UDFA, an unsigned free agent right now, and your bullshit excuse was like, I don't feel comfortable getting the vaccine, this is your opportunity to make a shit ton of money this week, and your lack of belief in science probably blew that for you. Anyway, the thing that I really wanted to point out, and this actually makes the most logical sense, rather get smoked on Sunday instead of like pushing the game back, have most of the team back on Tuesday or Wednesday, because there's games that are scheduled for Tuesday and Wednesday now, and then 5 days later with the 1 day of travel to get back to the back half of the game. Like you leave, like if you play on Wednesday, you leave Wednesday night, you get back on Thursday early in the morning. You have practice Thursday, which is probably going to be a walkthrough because everybody's banged up and hurt and stuff like that, and it's also really late in the season, and there's absolutely no way you're getting out of a game with 0 injuries. Friday, you got to practice, and then Saturday, you got to travel, or Friday, you got to travel, and then you go to the opponent's building, if that's going to be the case for you. Luckily, that a lot of teams would rather just play on Sunday, get crushed on Sunday, and then have the whole week to prepare for the next game without like whoever is going to be out or whatever, and as opposed to messing up potentially 2 opportunities to win a game because you push the game back for the sake of a roster to get bolstered to potentially win a game, and then of course basically guaranteeing yourself in a terrible situation in the second game of the 2 games that are coming up. So I feel like that actually makes a lot more sense, and we'll talk about what some of the other teams said when we get to their breakdowns. But the NFLPA has taken a lot of heat. Like Casey Hayward tweeted out a pretty dumb tweet. I'm not going to lie. He referenced, like, why aren't they treating this situation like the Broncos and the Raiders got treated last year? If you recall, the Broncos got caught by the league intentionally flouting the rules. They were like, hey, you're supposed to be 6 feet apart. They like met up off. They went to one of the quarterback's houses. They probably went to like Drew Lock's house and watched film together. I think that's what it was. And then on top of that, they were not obeying like the rules about the mask and stuff like that in regards to COVID. So they actually forfeited their ability to get any kind of help from the NFL because they could easily say like, hey, you didn't follow our rules that we laid out for preventing COVID from spreading to person, which to their credit, they came to learn. And it's actually valuable information for a lot of sports organizations that COVID does not spread on the field player to player. It spreads like within the same team facility from people that you hang around all the time that have COVID, right? A player on a field can have COVID, but like there's a very slim chance that they're actually going to transmit that to another person. Anyway, that being said, that the whole situation was like for real about the NFLPA getting called out by multiple players because there's certain players who just like don't understand the inner workings of like the legal system that is the NFLPA essentially. But anyway, the NFLPA took like a lot of heat for getting the games rescheduled because the players just wanted to play on Sunday regardless of the number of players on the roster. I would also like to point out that the league was actually going to institute the forfeit policy in the course of this whole situation for 3 different teams, which would have ended up with 6 teams not getting paid because if one team forfeits out of a game, neither team gets paid. And the NFLPA went out there and saved everybody's money. And I'm sure, they would love for that to be tweeted about. But hey, here we are. Charles Robinson tweeted out about how the NFL was actually trying to forfeit some of these games, and the NFLPA encouraged them to just reschedule them a couple days later to give people an opportunity to get some more players because, quite frankly, there are players that are going to test positive or whatever that are not going to be symptomatic. There are going to be players that test positive and then can test negative like a couple days later because they are vaccinated, right? Your body gets over it faster. Anyway, that being said, the outbreak issue in this whole situation almost cost 6 teams, which is like, 400, 300 people their game checks or whatever? Because I don't know if that would affect the coaches or anything like that, but it would have affected 6 teams from being able to get paid out of the 18 game checks that they get in an entire year. So that means like the people who don't make a ton of money and the people who do make a ton of money, they need every single dollar they can get. Like that's just a fact. It's expensive living the life of an NFL football player. Anyway, that being said, we move on to actually talking about football games. Just wanted to read that out loud because it was something that I needed for context in terms of how I was going to approach this. We got a game that's rescheduled for Monday at 5:20 p.m. Yes, Monday Night Football is now a doubleheader. Oh, I forgot to tell you guys. Don't forget, there's Saturday football tomorrow. If you're watching this show, it's 9 p.m. on Friday, December 17th. They're rescheduled for 5:20. The Raiders are taking on the Browns. That's going to be on NFL Network, I'm assuming still. But Darren Waller will miss his 3rd straight game in this game between the Raiders and the Browns. Denzel Perryman is also going to miss this game, one of their best linebackers out there. But most of that, by the way, I'd like to point out, the Raiders fans were acting like absolute sociopaths on social media today because they were trying to, they were acting like absolute sociopaths on the internet today because they were trying to convince themselves that the league is got it out for them. The league definitely has it out for the Las Vegas Raiders who lost 43 to 9 last week. That's the team that they're really trying to undo and make sure that they don't have any form of success. Not that the Raiders are doing, the Raiders are doing pretty good on their own. I don't think the league is trying to help them in any way, shape, or form. As of Friday, the Browns had a total of 24 players. Half of those dudes were starters, including their punter, who either tested positive or were still on the reserve COVID list from weeks before from testing positive. Mark Davis tried to force the game to be played, saying that it put his team at a competitive disadvantage, referencing the fact that they would have to play 2 games they would have to play 2 games in 2 weeks technically, but it would be like 2 games within the span of 5 days, which is brutal, especially with the way that football works. Though I just wanted to point out, you talk about competitive disadvantage, lost by 4 touchdowns last week. Just want to put that out there. Just want to make sure people pay attention, make sure people know that. Anyway, that being said, this whole situation for me, I can't even tell you if I believe that the Browns can win this game because like half their starters are out. Literally half their starters are out right now. If this game holds, because there's no telling how many of these guys are actually going to be back in enough time for this game later on this week. But it's hard for me not to side with the Browns, especially with the way they've been playing defense this season, because the way they've been playing defense will give them plenty of offensive drives to go out there and outplay the Raiders, which is proven later on in the season to not be as difficult because their average depth of target is dropping drastically, mainly due to the fact that their pass protection is a little rough right now. So I'm banking on the Browns to go out here and get this win, man. I would not be trying to bet the spread on this game if I was you, as a person, you random person on the internet. I'm just saying. Other game. Moving on to our next game that we got here on the list, we got an 8:15 Patriots-Colts game, and I just want to say this was going to be clutch. This is also a Saturday game. This is actually going to be the only Saturday game now. 8:15 on Saturday on NFL Network. Make sure you check that out. It's going to be a ton of fun. This is two of the best defenses in the NFL. Literally, the Patriots and the Colts are like separated by, I think, 2 turnovers to be the top 2 turnover defenses in the NFL. The Patriots have been absolutely absurd when it comes to getting interceptions, which, of course, Carson Wentz has been very helpful to secondaries many a time in his life, right? Don't know if that's going to necessarily be the case here, but if they get Jonathan Taylor at 100% and they keep their offensive line 100% healthy in this one, this is definitely going to be like a one-score type of game. I do bank on the Patriots coming up with the win in this one. The Colts, and this is the weird part, I feel like turnovers could decide how this game goes, right? Like just like they decide a lot of things. But in particular, because the way the Colts have been playing this season, their play style, heavy run offensive, right? Like we know this for a fact. They take pressure off of Carson Wentz's ability to go out there and throw the ball down the field, and they give the ball to Jonathan Taylor, who is probably their best offensive player next to Quentin Nelson. And they are very aware that they can utilize that as a tool to get up the field, and especially get up the field, and most importantly, get up the field and take off a lot of time on the clock. They are third in the NFL right now in terms of time of possession, and I think they take advantage of that. They try and take advantage of it versus the Patriots, which is going to put a lot more pressure on the offense to go out there and make big explosive plays. Big injury for this matchup, though, is going to be Damien Harris is out. It's actually going to be, I think it's Rondale Stevenson, who we've seen actually have like multiple 2-touchdown games this season so far. I'm interested to see what he looks like when he has 100% of the workload, or like 90% of the running back snaps in this one, because he's been hurt the last couple of weeks. But when he did get a couple of carries in the red zone, he was able to finish that one off. This is a good game for Mac Jones. This is going to be a really effective game for really good test for Mac Jones in terms of how well he knows his offense and how controlled his offense is, because we've seen him play at like different types of tempo and different types of pace throughout the course of a football matchup. And this one is probably going to have to be a high velocity one. This is going to probably have to be a high octane one the entire time, because if the Colts get that's assuming that the Colts get to play the way that they want to play on offense, which is probably just not going to happen. But the fact of the matter is they're probably going to be limited in terms of the amount of time, in terms of possessions that they're going to have on this one. And then on top of that, they're going to have less possessions than they're accustomed to in the course of a football game. I'm banking on the Patriots to come out here and be clutch, but this is if the Colts get to play their offense the way that they want to, they're going to limit the number of times the offense for the Patriots even touches the ball in the course of this game, which is going to be very detrimental. Luckily, they have the kind of defense that can kind of pan it together. The Patriots being the number 1 seed in the AFC right now, right? Oh, no, they're the number 2 seed, because the Chiefs are technically number 1 with the win. But, yeah, I'll take the Patriots to win this one. Moving on to Sunday action, the Panthers are playing the Bills, and I got a funny story for you here. The Panthers' Matt Barkley, that Matt Barkley from USC, have sequestered P.J. Walker. The Panthers have sequestered P.J. Walker because Matt Barkley tested positive for COVID-19, and they need to keep him separated from Cam Newton in case he has also contracted, which, by the way, Cam Newton, one of the more recent players to get vaccinated in the NFL. So you would imagine that his vaccine will be a little bit more effective against the COVID that Matt Barkley has. I will also point this out. The third-string quarterback on the list right now is running back Reggie Bonifon. Do not underestimate the crazy things you're going to see this week, ladies and gentlemen, because if there was ever a week for offensive linemen or a defensive lineman to go out there and be like, hey, coach, can I get a couple reps on offense and red zone? Can I get a couple opportunities on punt return? This is that week. this is that week for a lot of teams because I mean we just scroll through all the people who have COVID in the league right now. That's not even including the people who are just like flat out injured. But yeah, that's like a big deal that's going on right now. But for the Panthers, they are basically crossing their fingers that their quarterbacks are gonna pass these COVID tests that are coming up because the increased COVID testing I think includes game day. So they could be losing their starting quarterback like Sunday morning. Anyway, sorry. But yeah, that's an interesting development that goes along this one. I don't think it actually matters in terms of the result of this game because they're playing the Bills. And the Bills, they look like they found themselves a little bit last week versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Panthers have had one of the better defenses in the NFL. And I will say the thing that has made them look slightly above average instead of elite is the absolutely complete lack of presence of their offense. They have had an offense this entire season that has basically been non-existent the back half of this season, and that's important in terms of the amount of time that the defense has to spend on the field, and I feel like that's a massive factor in terms of how successful you can be as a defense when you have to be out there twice as long as the offense does. In some cases, 3 times as long because there's a lot of 3-and-out. There's been a lot of 3-and-out offensive stretches so far for the Panthers offense, and their defense has kind of come up big for them multiple times. I would also like to point out the situation So, like I said before, there was like a pass rush official rating that came out where it was like amalgamation of PFF and ESPN's. It was the average in between them. So, yeah, the Panthers are 31st in the NFL in that. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, the Bills are pretty good at getting after the quarterback. They are 7th in the league. So, I was feeling that's gonna play a big factor. It's going to play a big factor. Also, DJ Moore questionable with like a knee situation. So, yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I'm taking the Bills. Not even joking. That seems like a layup. The Cardinals are going to be playing against the Detroit Lions. I guess we're... Oh, boy. Good luck to all the fans that are out there tailgating. I don't know. That's at Detroit, too. That's rough. DeAndre Hopkins is out for the regular season as they try, and it looks like it's kind of like a hope and a prayer that if they just rest his knee, it's going to heal itself in a span of time or whatever, in an early span of time, and that's what a lot of the Cardinals situation looks to be like. But nonetheless, I'll be taking the Cardinals to beat the Lions, even if they don't have DeAndre Hopkins. Also, Chase Edmonds could be back this week. They said he's been running routes in practice. He's still on IR, so they have not actually pulled him off of IR, which may be an indicator of him not playing. The Jets are playing the Dolphins. So I'll put it like this. We'll reference that same sheet that I just talked about, right? The same stat, the pass protection stat. 17th for the Jets, right? Which is a lot higher than I thought because they missed some time with Mekhi Becton. But the Dolphins are 2nd in the NFL in terms of getting pressures, and they pretty high on that sack list. So, yeah, it's something out here. The Dolphins have been doing, and if you watch the way that they play football, it's Tua doing really well. The run game is non-existent, and the defense gets sacks at key moments. So I'm going to be going with the Dolphins. This is a divisional matchup, but I do not expect it to be close because for some reason in my head, the Dolphins are significantly better than everybody else thinks that they are, and I'm going to bank on that information because it helped me out a lot last week when I got one game incorrect on this show. So the Cowboys are taking on the Giants. If you remember the last time the Cowboys played the Giants, the score was 44-20, and the 20 points was kind of a miracle on the part of the Giants. There has been rumored that Cedric Wilson, who's going to be very important, coming off of the COVID reserve list, and he should be eligible because of the new rules set out by the NFL where if you are asymptomatic and you can test negative like the day of a game, you can actually play in that game. Also, bad time for Dak Prescott, who just came off of a really rough game versus the Washington football team, who has a pretty good defense. There will be no Tyron Smith protecting him in this game, which is proven throughout the course of this season so far to be a very, very big problem. So that is my number one concern, but I'm gonna have faith in the Cowboys to be able to come out here and not only get after whoever is going to be under center, well, I say under center, whoever is going to be quarterbacking for the Giants. I'm banking on the pass rush that I've seen from the Cowboys to be very successful the last couple of weeks. And then on top of that, I'm banking on the non-existent offense of the Giants to make an appearance again for the 15th week in a row. So, yeah. This game has been rescheduled for Tuesday. Eagles fans, showing their ass on the internet as always. They have been worked up into a psychopathic level of rage on the internet, basically blaming Washington for their game getting moved because obviously the Washington football team wanted a massive COVID outbreak. And with that being said, I'll be taking the Eagles. I've been taking the Eagles in this one. Faith with the defense coming back and looking good. They are coming off of a bye. There's still question about who's going to be playing quarterback to a certain degree because Jalen Hurts says that he's recovering pretty well from his injury, but also Gardner Minshew played really well versus the Jets, which if you're a coach, you kind of have to sit back and be like, I think I can go out there slinging versus the Jets, right? Like a little bit. Like I think I can go out there and make it happen versus the Jets a little bit. You know what I mean? So it's not necessarily like the biggest thumbs up on the face of the planet other than the hype that Gardner Minshew displayed because of his passion for football, which is pretty dope. But nonetheless, this one should be interesting. Divisional matchup, obviously, but the quarterback situation should be interesting as well. I'll take the Eagles to go out here and perform pretty well because Nick Sirianni seems like he's made adjustments once throughout the course of the season, and I think I've been giving him too much credit for making that slight adjustment in terms of like shifting away from passing the ball a shit ton to like, hey, we're gonna just run the ball way too much, right? I have faith that he's going to come out here and make something happen. Also, the Eagles are more talented than the Washington football team. So, yeah. And the Eagles' pass protection has been pretty bad this season. We know that. But I would like to say it's been getting better in the back half of the season. And I'm going to lean on that. It's been getting a little bit better. This game is going to be really weird because when I look at it initially, I don't really have like a dynamic answer for you. This is a Sunday 1 p.m. game. The Titans are taking on the Steelers, right? Everybody's kind of got this whole thing of like Derrick Henry looming in the background. When will Derrick Henry return? Instead of focusing on the situation for the Titans at hand, where they need to keep winning games to be able to maintain like their high seed that they currently have right now, especially since some of these teams in the back half of the season, like we talk about the Bengals been playing pretty well, the 49ers kicking it up a little bit. I know they're in other divisions and stuff like that, but they are, along with the Chiefs, the Chargers, right? The Broncos been picking it up a little bit as well. A lot of other AFC teams have been going out here and getting some key wins that could affect the positioning for the Titans, especially the Bills, who seem to be in the best situation to do something to affect the Titans' current standing in the playoff standings when it's all said and done. But nonetheless, the Titans are going out there. They're playing against the Steelers, elite level defense, an offense that shows up maybe 2 quarters a game. The question is, are the 2 best quarters you're going to get out of this Steelers offense, are they going to be the 3rd and 4th? Because that's a legitimate situation. This is going to be a big test for Ryan Tannehill, obviously, because he's still got A.J. Brown on IR, and the whole Julio Jones experiment has not worked out like at all so far from what we can see. And this could be the week that it works out, but it would be very impressive if it's the week that it works out just so happens to be the week that they're playing the Steelers, right? This looks like a perfect opportunity for the Steelers to cook up a really stupid upset. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna take the Steelers to take the Steelers to upset the Titans, not only because of the injury situation, but on top of that, like they just so happen to be really good in the portion of they just so happen to be really good on defense, which is gonna be interesting for probably the most hobbled defense in the NFL right now, or hobbled offense in the NFL right now with the Tennessee Titans. Like they literally are running like 3rd and 4th string wide receivers out there. So we'll see. Is Golden Tate playing? That'll definitely change my opinion. Golden Tate being out there on the field is going to change my perspective on this game. The Texans are playing the Jaguars. Oh, by the way, is this where I get off my Urban Meyer got fired jokes? I will say I did say on my previous NFL show that the punishment for Urban Meyer is that he is his punishment is to continue to coach the Jags. Apparently, he finally said the magic word that got him fired. Congratulations to Urban. Shout out to Urban for finally doing whatever he needed to do to go out here and get the dub and escape Jacksonville, which, I think everybody's just a lot happier now. Like a lot of people think that Trevor Lawrence is going to be out here looking a lot better this week. Watch bated breath, fingers crossed, 40 carries for James Robinson is what we're hoping for, ladies and gents. At least 40 carries for James Robinson. Set the man free. Set James Robinson free. Let him run free on the Texans defense, which is the worst run defense in the NFL. I'm sorry, has given up the most rush yards, which doesn't make you the worst run defense, but they've also probably faced the most rush plays this season as well. But yeah, I am, if Davis Mills is starting, which seems to be the case, I'll be taking the Jaguars. Sad to say. I think this is the first time in my entire life that I've ever picked, I think this is the first time I ever picked the Jaguars to win a game, like straight up. First time ever. But yeah, I expect the Jaguars to go out here and win this one. Especially it's at home. Bengals at Broncos. This one should be really good. Also, this could be the back-breaking loss for the Bengals this season. They have had so many close games, and this one is matching up to look like it's going to be one of those close games. Teddy Bridgewater and Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow currently leads the league in interceptions thrown by quarterbacks, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double-check that. Yeah, I think... Let me scoring defense. This is the defensive category. My bad. Passing. Let's go standard passing. Joe Burrow, who leads the NFL in interceptions? It is Joe Burrow with 14. It is Joe Burrow tied with Trevor Lawrence for 14. By the way, Patrick Mahomes third with 13. In case you weren't paying attention. But yeah, straight up though, this is going to be interesting. It's going to be. We saw the same matchup, right? Like we saw the 49ers and the Bengals play each other last week. This is kind of similar. It's basically the same team. Like the Broncos and the 49ers, not that far off from being the exact same football team, right? Super strong defense, really strong running game that kind of is the engine for their offense, and then a quarterback that can go out there and sling that thing sometimes, but also, Teddy Bridgewater risks the ball a lot more. This is going to be big time pressure because this is actually two of the best defenses in the NFL facing off against each other. It could come down to quarterback play. One turnover could be the deciding factor in this one. Legitimately, one turnover could be the deciding factor in this one. You know what? I'm feeling the upset, and I feel like when I say I'm feeling the upset, I'll take the Bengals. Maybe they've learned their lesson from playing against the 49ers, but my biggest concern, of course, is the turnovers that we've seen out of Joe Burrow, because the second half of a lot of these games has been absolutely amazing. Amazing. When I found out that he was leading the NFL in interceptions last week, I was just kind of like, what? Like every time I watch Joe Burrow, he's making some amazingly accurate pass over the middle of the field, and it's just like you don't think about the number of times that he's been picked off this season. I will point out, I think some of the times there should have been interceptions credited to the wide receiver, but we don't live in that universe, right? But I'll take the Bengals to beat the Broncos. Broncos been cooking way too hot right lately, maybe because their opponent, but I feel like the Bengals can go out here and get this dub. Falcons taking on the 49ers. Well, the formula has been, if you have a winning record, the Falcons lose to you. If you have a losing record, the Falcons beat you. I know what it is off the top of my. I just want you to know that I know what the 49ers record is, but let's go look at the 49ers record right now, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see. The San Francisco 49ers are currently, on this season, guess what? 1 win over 500. You know what that means? They're 1 win too good to lose to the Falcons. So I'll be taking the 49ers to win this one, also banking on a very amazing defensive performance. This should be, if you got the 49ers in fantasy defense, you know what you're doing. This game has been rescheduled for Tuesday, and here's why. This game is the Seahawks at the Rams, which should be very interesting because the Rams ran away with the first time these two teams met up. And I think that was Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football. It was a primetime game, and the Rams cooked the Seahawks alive. The Rams have 29 players on COVID, on the COVID-19 list, including receiver Odell Beckham Jr., Jalen Ramsey, outside linebacker Von Miller, and 4 other starters. I think one of those is Darrell Henderson Jr., by the way. The Los Angeles list includes tight end Tyler Higbee, who missed Monday night's game, if you recall, and it didn't really affect the way that they were able to get up and down the field. But Tyler Higbee getting removed from the team, I think it was like the same day as the game, and then it came out that it was a false positive, so that was fun. I will point out Odell Beckham Jr. randomly tweeted out negative with like a smiley face earlier today, and I think that was an indicator that he tested negative for COVID, and he is going to be available for this game versus the Seahawks. But he was also, they said that he had a false positive, and then they added him back to the list on Friday. That's what Tyler Higbee had. The Seahawks are placing their leading wide receiver, Tyler Lockett. Some of you guys know how important Tyler Lockett is to the ecosystem of the NFL, because one of the most beautiful plays probably in the history of football is a moon ball from Russell Wilson to Tyler Lockett into the end zone. Honestly, it's my favorite drug in the NFL, let's be for real. And then running back Alex Collins, who's had a really rough go of it because he not only got hurt, but now has gotten COVID within the spans of like the last 2 weeks. So the running backs are for the Seahawks are down to like 3 people, I think. I think Travis Homer is available and Rashad Penny is available. So there's that. And then also, in terms of Washington has 23 players available on the COVID-19 list. I forgot to mention that earlier. And that also includes Taylor Heineke and their backup quarterback, Kyle Allen, which, by the way, guess who the backup is for Washington? Garrett Gilbert. So, yeah. Anyway. But yeah, this should be very interesting. A lot of Seahawks players are on the COVID-19 reserve list. It makes me want to pick the Rams, but I also believe in the absolute chaos that is the NFC West with my whole heart. And also Russell Wilson has been no, let's be for real. He's been slowly playing better, but I don't think he's playing better to be able to compete with like a superstar studded Rams team that we've seen consistently. And on top of that, this is going to be a big test for the defense because there's that little hiccup in the court in the the beginning of the middle of the NFL season that was a problem. Other than that, the Rams been kind of cooking lately. The Seahawks have been struggling to get their offense back, and now they've lost their number one wide receiver, which means that maybe, just maybe, they'll be forcing the ball to DK Metcalf for the first time in like 2 months, which a lot of people are going to be big fans of. So I'll take the Seahawks. Especially considering they have a legit chance of not getting Jalen Ramsey back, which is a problem. But yeah, nonetheless, we move on to what is probably going to be the game of the week. Well, was going to be the game of the week. Lamar Jackson has not practiced at all this week, and they play the Packers. The Ravens play the Packers. The Packers will be traveling to the bank, MNT Bank, and Lamar Jackson has not practiced all week. So there's a strong chance that Tyler Huntley is going to be out here with the starting quarterback situation because the double ankle injury that they said is not a high ankle sprain, but he does have a questionable listed on them, or they're just banking on the fact that they have a now veteran quarterback who is their superstar, who they have faith that he's going to be able to go out there and do what he needs to do if they give him a little bit of rest. So that also combined with the fact that Calais Campbell is not going to be available, man, this seems like a perfect setup for an upset, but I'll take the Packers. I'll take the Packers in this one, and it's mainly because not only the Packers have some of the fewest people that are on the COVID-19 protocol list, so that combined with the fact that Aaron Rodgers is very good at football, regardless of how good the defense is that he's facing. So yeah, there's that. The Saints are taking on the Buccaneers, and that is Sunday Night Football, and they'll have to do without their head coach because Sean Payton has COVID again. So that is really bad. Hopefully Sean Payton is going to be all right. I know he said he felt bad the first time that he had it and all kind of jazz like that, and I'm assuming that he's vaccinated because he's a coach and he has to be vaccinated. And also, I think he was like one of the big advocates for people to get vaccinated in Louisiana. So hopefully he's going to be all right and back in action sooner rather than later. And hopefully the new COVID protocol rules for the NFL apply to coaches so that he can get back into the building like tomorrow, essentially. Or back into action tomorrow. But yeah, the Saints are taking on the Buccaneers, and this is lining itself up to be like a Buccaneers ass kicking for the Saints. So yeah, especially considering the whole quarterback situation has not been sorted out, I'll take the Buccaneers. I will admit, remember last year, the second time the Buccaneers played the Saints in the course of the season, this is when they got blown out by, it was like 40-14, and we thought the Buccaneers were cooked, and then they won the Super Bowl. So maybe the Saints are going to baptize the Buccaneers again, but this is in Tampa Bay. So I will go with the Buccaneers on this one off the fact of consistency, which is going to be something that I'm utilizing a lot this season because I think there's a lot of times where I've overestimated the value of injuries, but there's been definitely times where I've underestimated it, and just not having multiple starters has got to have some kind of drastic effect on teams. But the Buccaneers, on top of that, also being a very high-quality football team, and progressively getting better. They had another clutch win versus the Buffalo Bills just a week ago, a team that many people would argue has a high-quality defense, and they kind of cooked them at multiple points throughout the course of that game. So and that was with the Buffalo Bills offense that turned it on in the second half of the game, right? They turned it on like late in the fourth quarter and were able to be competitive. Don't think the Saints are going to be very competitive on offense at all in this one, even though Alvin Kamara is back. So, yeah. That being said, last game on the schedule, 8:15 p.m. I'll let you know if I'm going to watch this one. I'm just kidding. The Vikings are taking on the Bears. Andy Dalton is in COVID protocols. So that means it is Justin Fields going out there and getting to continue what he was doing versus the Green Bay Packers, because quite frankly, if that Justin Fields shows up, they got a legit shot of being competitive with the Vikings. And if there's one thing that we know about the Vikings, ladies and gentlemen, they love to get a big lead and then blow it in the second half, which open the door for the Bears, and they might just walk through. You never know. Also, the Vikings are very much teetering on the verge of becoming a non-playoff team. They are the epitome of on the bubble if I've ever seen it. They are 6-7 currently right now, which is bad for the NFC East because 6-7, they're currently tied with Washington, who's an NFC East team right now. They are better than the Broncos, but worse. Sorry, that's another AFC team. I don't know why I did that. The Falcons are 6-7. They're in second place in their division, and then the Rams are currently second in the NFC West. So they're definitely one of the wild card spots, if not the divisional champion. So for sure right now. We've got the Cardinals, we've got the Rams, and then these other playoff spots that are non-divisional playoff spots, the Vikings are really, really in the hunt for these situations, even though they have a losing record. But they got to come out here and look like they're a team that's in the hunt. And this Monday Night Football matchup, it looks like it's got the Bears getting the dub all over it. Because of the defensive presence that we've seen from the Bears throughout the course of the season. And then on top of that, the cornerback play from the Vikings has been rough, is what I'll say. If they have Allen Robinson in this one, they got a legit shot to win this. Plus, it's a divisional matchup. I'll take the Bears in the upset. I'm feeling it. I really am. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, the show is over. Thank you for joining us all the way through this, an hour and 24 minutes. Appreciate everybody who stuck through it, who joined in at any point, at any time. Don't forget, you can check out the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Deezer, Podchaser. You can rewatch the show on YouTube, or you can check out the replay on YouTube right now. If you're one of those people, shout out to you. Anything else I got here, make sure you're washing your hands, wash your ass. Yeah, we're back to wash your hands, wash your ass. If you have the opportunity to wash your whole body, please take it, because right now Omicron in the streets, and she cooking. That's all I'm gonna say. And on that note, we'll finish off the show like I did on Thursday or Wednesday, breaking down, we're reviewing what the NFL standings look like right now. The Patriots, Ravens, Titans, and Chiefs currently hold the 4 AFC divisional championship spots. The NFC, it's the Cowboys, the Packers, the Buccaneers, and the Cardinals. And like I said before, the Rams look like they are a solid. They're going to be the wild card number 1 seed as of right now. On that note, hit me up on Twitter at FB_playbook, on Twitter at the Ashton J. That's my personal account. Or you can follow the podcast account at BrokeBoyPod. You can also check me out on Instagram and on TikTok at the same name, at the Ashton Forever. So other than that, Stay scheming. Why did I just use Lacey Mosley's tagline? My tagline, I forgot. My bad. My tagline is, go home, Roger. Bye, guys. Oh, God. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I drank too much whiskey at once. Oh, that was rough. That was hard. Like I said, it's Wild Turkey 151, so it's like twice the proof of like normal whiskey. Oh, that hurt. I thought there was more soda in there.